And we are live.
Hello, Facebook viewers. We're back.
And YouTube viewers too. Yes, we're live for a minute before we start doing Gay USA for this week. Per usual, chock full of news, mostly fun political news, I would say.
Yes, I just read something about Bobby Kennedy that was pretty interesting. It's not fun, though.
Yeah. Well, no, he's not fun these days. All right, so here we go with Gay USA.
And we have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Humm.
I'm Ann Northrop.
And in the news this week, well, the Human Rights Campaign is spending $15 million on winning equality voters in swing states for Biden.
Sounds like a worthwhile enterprise. Meanwhile, a federal appeals court has ruled that against parents who want to opt their kids out of lessons with LGBTQ content. No, you can't do that, the court said.
A Florida girl was penalized for not wearing a dress at the prom. In Mississippi, a trans girl was hit for wearing one.
Can't we all just get along? An entertaining police report on the swinging right-wing couple, the Zigglers in Florida. We like to follow every step of their journey.
You remember them.
Yeah.
Even the nuns don't like Kansas City Chiefs kickers' sexist, homophobic remarks.
Well, who would? The Pope talked to 60 Minutes, including about LGBTQ issues. We'll let you know what he had to say.
Don't hold your breath. A survey found that most U.S. corporations are not cutting back on pride outreach.
Now, what you have to hold your breath for is me putting on this hat from Brighton Beach Pride this weekend. It was fun.
Yeah, out in Brooklyn.
Yeah. A New Jersey bakery is fighting anti-LGBTQ bigotry with a bake sale for LGBTQ youth.
Very disturbing story. 4 LGBTQ bars in San Diego were hit with drive-by pellet gun shots, and there were injuries.
Yeah. Gel pellets. I don't think I've ever heard of that before. Anyway, progress in Liechtenstein and regression in Peru and in the UK.
A bevy of stars have come out in defense of Kevin Spacey.
Self-perpetuating hierarchy? Yeah. Maybe. Another out Tony nominee to tell you about, 21-year-old Malia Joy Moon in Hell's Kitchen.
And Billie Eilish releases her most lesbianic song ever.
She's getting more overt every month, like another step. She just gets...
This is a big one.
More, yes, it is.
Well, you know, we always tell you terrible things about Donald Trump, but he came out for birth control this week.
For about... Yeah, after not.
Yeah, and by the way, Senator Schumer is going to put the Republicans on the spot, say, you like birth control? Let's have a vote for it on a national basis.
Please. Well, it just is too delicious. But the Trump trial is about to wind up, final arguments next week. Rise and Resist was out there, as they are every week, with a sign that particularly caught my attention this week. If we can show that, our first picture. So there somewhere.
There it is.
Yeah. It says, slept with a porn star, screwed the voters.
We should have a parental advisory on this program.
We may have to this week, but I thought they were very good. But here's the clever thing they did. So at one point, the cops shut down the street to pedestrians and tried to get rid of the demonstrators from both sides, I guess. So some Rise and Resist people hailed a cab up the street, got in it, and drove to the spot they wanted to get to on the street because the street was left open for cars.
Oh,
So that, like a clown car, they get out of the cab with their signs and do their demonstration right there that the cops had been trying to keep them away from.
well, you know, you've also seen this parade of right-wing Republicans showing up for Donald Trump in their red ties,
And blue suits.
looking like quite the cult.
Yeah.
And when they go, they have little press conferences outside afterwards, and Rise and Resist this time, or one of the times, they just started clanging bells and things like that.
Cowbells, yelling at them, really drowning them out in their press conference, which I thought was great.
They can dish it out, but they can't take it.
Well, these guys are making fools of themselves when they show up in these uniforms and spout their nonsense. And they're all war criminals themselves. So the press is on to them and calling them out on their foolishness.
So this was also the week that Trump's Truth Social reposted a video, including a headline, "What's Next for America?" With a subhead that read, "The Creation of a Unified Reich." Now, the Trump campaign tried to distance themselves from this, but Trump has a penchant for Nazi stuff. I mean, as his late wife, Ivana, said in her divorce papers, he kept a book of Hitler's speeches by the nightstand. This was, so he's very much into Hitler stuff. And by the way,
his forebears are all German,
right?
Except for his Scottish mother.
And his father was a member of the KKK. That's all been documented.
Yep.
And we're not making this up.
Yep.
But the other thing, of course, Ivana said was that he raped her, and that brought the whole issue of marital rape into the fore when that divorce was filed. And that's a big scene in the new movie about him, The Apprentice, about the young Donald Trump, about which they want to sue.
I would like to see that movie.
Well, it features Jeremy Strong as Roy Cohn.
Yep.
Jeremy Strong as Roy Cohn, Trump's lawyer and mentor. He, of course, dumped Roy Cohn when Roy got AIDS.
Exactly, because even Roy would have said that made him weak. Anyway.
Oh, he's also a germphobe, so,
Exactly.
Probably didn't want to be around Roy anymore.
Exactly. But I'm glad to see that the Human Rights Campaign has assembled a war chest of $15 million so far to go out and ring doorbells and do ads and really do a push in swing states.
Yes.
To draw out the LGBTQ vote and allies, as they say, the equality vote for Biden.
Well, they say there are 75 million equality voters across the country now. I don't know how but they said there were 62 million in 2020 and 52 million in 2016. I guess they base this on polling.
I don't think they've gone and counted door to door. Yes, of course.
And the national
and voting.
They're going to concentrate on Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada.
Yeah.
Then there's the National Democratic Redistricting Commission is joining with Planned Parenthood to win Arizona, Michigan. And these are not just presidential races, but Senate races, Montana, North Carolina, Ohio, and Texas.
Well, mostly this makes me happy because there's the energy and there are the resources. And to me, this all started when Trump first got elected in 2016 and the Women's March started in 2017. And you saw that outpouring, that flood of people into the streets to say, this is awful and we're going to fight back. And they have fought back ever since, winning Senate seats, House seats, the presidency in 2020. There is a huge crowd of people in this country who are fighting relentlessly.
We held up a banner made by Gilbert Baker that said Pussy Power, as I remember.
We did. It wasn't created for that event, but we adapted it.
We did.
I have that picture still if you want to see it.
Speaking of stopping the coup, because this is what we're concerned about,
it
will happen in 2025 if God forbid, Trump gets elected. Justice Alito not only tried to blame the upside down flag outside his house on his wife, what a cad he is, but he said, well, it was my wife's reaction to a slur on a sign that was very offensive, and it was within 50 feet of where the children line up to get the school bus. Now, this isn't 2021 in January when there were no kids lining up for the school because it was all remote learning in those days. So in addition to being a bigot, he's a liar.
Always.
Shameless liar.
Yeah. And then there was a report that the log cabin Republicans, the gay Republicans, have a choice for who they want Trump to pick as vice president. Tim Scott, senator from South Carolina. And why do they want him? Because he is a closeted gay man.
They said that?
Yes. Now, I haven't quite figured out that rationale.
Being a closet case is nothing to be proud of. And of course, if you're a closet case, how can you be proud of it?
I don't get it. But that's the report, that it is specifically because he is closeted that they think he'd make a great vice president.
And by the way, the closet has its roles in society. If I lived in Iraq these days or a lot of other places, I would be in the closet.
Maybe Texas. Yeah, there are definite pockets. As I live my life even here, there are times I'm overt and others I'm more quiet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
although Whoopi Goldberg said when there was something,
mostly quiet.
Well, she's whatever, but she was saying something about they were talking about the WNBA on The View. And someone made mention of the fact that the WNBA is not so popular because they have a large lesbian population in the WNBA, the players. And Whoopi says, well, you can't tell. That can't be a reason because you can't tell. You can't just look and say, oh, there's one. And I want to say, excuse me, Whoopi. I would like to argue with that statement. I don't think that's true.
Okay. Let's talk about that Kansas City Chiefs kicker again, Harrison Butker, 28.
Okay.
He gave that deeply sexist and homophobic commencement address at Catholic Benedictine College and is getting kicked right back, especially for urging young women to stay at home and make babies. His wife does stay home, but he's married to a guy who makes $4 million a year. It's kind of easy.
She's married to.
She's married to him.
Yeah. There he is there's his, he looks a little depressed on the bench there. I don't know if he's happy.
Maybe he's disappointed in his mother, who was a physicist working in the Department of Radiology at Emory School of Medicine since 1988.
Mm-hmm.
So while his audience mostly applauded him at that school, especially the guys, 10 to 15 women did not stand up for him and some booed. But then there's the Benedictine nuns.
Oh, they're very upset at him. The Benedictine nuns are a progressive group of nuns. Nuns are often more progressive than their brothers
these days.
And this group came out with a statement, a public statement saying, we do not agree and we think he's full of nonsense.
They say he fosters division, and that's not what we're about. By the way, a college classmate of Butker's alleges that he had a special relationship with a male cheerleader at Georgia Tech.
Well, there you go.
Speaking of closet cases.
But the speech, I read the speech. I didn't watch it. I read it. And there is an anti-Semitic line in it. He's upset at Congress passing the no anti-Semitic hate speech law, because he thinks that prevents him from saying who killed Christ.
Doesn't prevent you from saying it. There just may be consequences.
Well, he's upset about that, and people are upset.
So he likes calling Jews Christ killers.
Yes. He is devoted to the one true faith, as you would know, the Catholicism.
Well, yes, when I was in college, I ran into a lot of Protestants. I was a Catholic, and I have a friend who said, he would say to his Protestant friends, isn't it wonderful? We both worship the same God. You in your way, I in his. Well,
I think that is...
I've left the outfit.
That is Butker's attitude. But the report on the speech at the time was that the men in the audience cheered it.
Yeah.
The women, not so much, which was interesting because the news was saying, well, the graduates loved it and there was applause and whatever. Well, evidently not so much from the women.
More than 200,000 people, maybe it's probably 500,000 by now, have signed a change.org petition calling on the Chiefs to fire him, something that is not going to happen, though the NFL said his views are not those of the NFL. And I'm not for firing people, who take controversial positions unless they're doing stuff to disrupt the team.
Yeah, and this is the way it should be, speech and counter speech. And the fact that the nuns in the NFL and women in the audience are all speaking up and condemning him is the way it should work. And he will, live with those consequences, and some will applaud him and some won't, and life will go on. Whoopi, again, said, why are we getting mad at him? He was just giving his opinion.
Everybody tells their opinion. Oh, that's an idiotic statement.
It is.
She must be getting tired.
Look, she's been talking about it like this for a long time. Not 100%, but I object to a lot of her statements.
Well, speaking of Catholics, how about that Pope? Really nothing new from him in this 60 Minutes interview with Norah O'Donnell. But she did bring up gay issues and talked about his past statements. But he really said, she didn't press him, and he really didn't say anything new. He just said, bless the people, not the relationship. Come on. Yeah,
because she was saying, well, you approved of, you did a nice thing approving of blessing same-sex couples. And he said, no, not the couple, not the civil union. Right. Just the individuals. We can bless all individuals, everyone.
She said, you said homosexuality is not a crime. He said, no, it's a human fact. Well, that doesn't say anything. Just saying that we're a fact doesn't say a goddamn thing.
Well, actually, given how many people think we made it up, I think that is progressive. And it's certainly better than Harrison Butker, who says we're a dirty, evil lie. Holding pride parades.
But the news out of the interview was that he went after conservatives in the United States, the conservative bishops, who he said are suicidal with their attitudes towards a lot of things. And he also really stuck up for immigrants, saying that the right wing because that's what upsets the right wing the most. The Pope said migration is something that makes a country great. And that made heads explode all over the MAGA sphere.
All right. Well, a little more politics. West Virginia, they held a primary for the Republican nomination for governor. And the current attorney general won the primary, but he beat a guy who was rumored to be gay. Moore Capito. Is Moore Capito related to the Senator Shelley Moore Capito?
Of U.S. Senator Shelley Capito.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why isn't she voting for gay stuff?
She did vote for the Respect for Marriage Act, I think.
Oh, well, maybe now we know why.
I think.
Okay.
Yes.
Check that.
I will.
All right. And in other politics, we are continuing to follow the fascinating journey of Bridget and Christian Ziggler in Florida.
This is a notoriously anti-LGBTQ couple, Republican couple. He had to resign. They were first accused of having a threesome with a woman, and he was accused of raping her. He was not charged with that. So he had to resign as the head of the state Republican Party. But it turns out he has been trolling for threesomes. In the beginning we said, well, we don't know if this was a one-off, so to speak, that he trolls for threesomes in bars, calls her, sends pictures to her, says, how about this one? And she would say something like, don't come home until you're wet. I mean, this is all very provocative.
And she's one of the co-founders of Moms for Liberty, and continues to serve on a school board and condemn LGBTQ people and issues and fight against us. And yet she is enjoying threesomes with her husband.
Last week, she introduced a resolution at the school board to ignore protections for LGBTQ students issued by the Biden administration under Title IX. Last week.
So they subpoenaed his phones in the investigation of the alleged rape. And that's where they're getting all this information about their communications.
And numerous videos of sexual violence apparently on his phone.
Really?
Yes.
Violence or
and it's also-
consensual
it's-
S&M?
It's also not, I don't know, but it's also not clear that the women who were being videoed knew that they were being videoed, which is a big issue.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how they continue their careers in Florida. Recent news this week that got a lot of attention was the governor of South Carolina signing the bill forbidding any kind of medical care for trans youth under 18.
And he went further. He also said, and you also can't access the care if you're under 26 and get Medicaid reimbursement.
And you have to, so that's not only no surgery, which no one's performing anyway for people under 18, or rarely, but no hormones, no puberty blockers, no nothing. And in this country, we have relied so much on this idea that women should be able to control their own bodies. And we've lost a lot of that population, that support when it comes to trans kids.
Yes, we have. And this is a tipping point because this was the 26th state to ban gender-affirming care for minors.
I remain convinced that this will be a blip in time and we'll come to our senses. But meanwhile, a lot of people are suffering.
And watch out for X, because Elon Musk's social media platform has begun restricting accounts for using the term cis and cisgender, labeling them as slurs. Now, cisgender simply means a gender identity that corresponds with sex assigned at birth, in contrast to being transgender. This is from Elon, who, of course, has an alienated trans daughter, I believe, and who has disowned him.
But meanwhile, in New York State, the latest report is that 4,802 people have adopted X gender markings on their state IDs, driver's license, ID cards, whatever. So
and they're very happy about it down at the DMV. It's a breakthrough.
Well, it's easier to deal with. It's instead of forcing people into something they're not comfortable with, you say, how do you want to identify? People tell you, you respect them.
Right. It's called good manners. Now in New Hampshire, they used to be a rock rib Republican state. They're still fairly Republican, although they tend to vote for Democratic presidential candidates. But the legislature passed 3 anti-trans bills almost entirely along party lines, and they work a little different there. One bans trans girls from participating in school sports, matching their gender identity, but only starting in the 5th grade, which could lead to genital inspections. The bill lets parents sue if a school or a governing board or a school sports allows a trans student to play a sport. That's outrageous.
And the bill mandates that parents be given 2 weeks notice if the school is going to institute LGBTQ educational issues in the curriculum. And the bill refers to that kind of education as objectionable material.
Now, in Eugene, Oregon,
but we don't know whether the governor is going to sign any of this, although he has expressed an antipathy to trans girls participating in girls' sports.
That means he's against it. In Eugene, Oregon, at the state track and field championships, a trans girl, Aiden Gallagher, we have a picture of her in her race, won the 200 meters and placed second in the 400 meters. And she got a lot of boos from the crowd, which is kind of unprecedented at a track meet. You have to be concerned. A New York poll found that 2/3 of voters support requiring high school athletics to be restricted to girls and boys teams based on sex assigned at birth. So we're not doing well on that issue. Now, again, this is all up to the sports bodies to set these standards about who can participate and who can't, and they're constantly changing. But she was participating under the rules.
And the rules are changing. The original impulse was to allow trans kids, trans adults, whatever, to participate in all sports, depending on certain parameters, testosterone levels, length of time living in their current gender identity, things like that. But a lot of that has been thrown out the window, and they're making a lot of rules that are just very didactic about no participation. And this is going to come into play in the Olympics this summer. A lot of the International Olympic Committee decided to just throw it to the individual sports, and a lot of individual sports have announced bans on trans participation in their sports. So we'll see whether it becomes a big issue.
Disturbing news out of San Diego. 4 LGBTQ plus bars were victims of drive-by pellet gun shootings. At least 3 people hit, and one of them was hospitalized. The Rail Bar, Rich's Nightclub, number 1 Fifth Avenue, and Pease. A guy named Eddie Reynoso, the host at Rich's, got hit in the eye and missed his retina, but which would have pupil, which would have blinded him.
It sounds like one car driving around. I don't know how many people would have been in it, but shooting at these bars in sequence
and hitting people
between midnight and 1 a.m. one night. Yes, hitting people with gel pellets. I've never heard of that.
I don't know that, but the police are not yet acknowledging that these are anti-LGBTQ hate crimes.
Well, not all of them anyway. And in Spokane, Washington, which is a pretty conservative area in more eastern Washington, there is camera footage of a bunch of people, no further identification, going out one night and pouring a liquid on a rainbow crosswalk and setting it on fire. And so the police are pursuing this as arson, at least, and maybe a hate crime. It is one of a series of hate crimes like that. The crosswalk's been attacked. Pride flags have been torn down. LGBTQ stores have been vandalized. So it's tough in Spokane. But the local prosecutor's wife told the mayor said, these are awful and we're going to pursue this and we can't have this kind of hate in Spokane. And the local prosecutor's wife says, oh, so you're only supporting one side. And
they're very fine people on both sides.
There are people here, she said, who don't want this kind of stuff in Spokane. This is the prosecutor's
So we should
wife.
burn them. All right.
Wow.
Well, in Naples, Florida, 16-year-old, we got a picture of her, Sophie Savage, 16. She was ejected from the prom at her charter school. I don't know anything about her sexual orientation, but, maybe you can tell by looking.
Well, we know Whoopi can't.
Mason Classical Academy for wearing a black suit and not a dress. They said it was a violation of the dress code for prom events. And although she doesn't even own a dress, so she couldn't go home and put on a dress.
Yes, Sophie says,
she didn't wear a dress to the Valentine's Day dance. But the school was hell-bent on crushing her prom dreams.
She had showed up at other events wearing a suit, and they had not stopped her. But when it came to prom,
her mother is proud of her, and she's going to be homeschooled next year.
Good. Well, in Mississippi, in Harrison County, a mom is suing the Harrison County schools because her trans daughter, also 16, went to a band concert.
Yep.
Or wanted to, wearing a dress, and was forbidden to enter, and was told that she had to wear pants because she's trans, and that did not correspond with her birth gender.
She's been subjected to racist slurs, anti-trans slurs, obviously, and the vice principal suspended her and let the bully go.
Yeah, that was crazy, and that's why the mom is suing. But evidently the school has policed other students on their dress.
The ACLU says these kind of codes in schools, dress codes, are totally illegal under Title IX, so they're suing.
Well, a federal appeals court in Maryland has upheld a ruling in a lower court and says parents cannot opt kids out of LGBTQ lessons. I think this is a major step. We've heard for years that parents have the right to opt kids out of particular lessons.
This was denying them an injunction, and the parents said it infringed on their religion to so much as let their kids hear anything related to LGBTQ stuff. And this was Muslims, Jews, and Christians who brought this lawsuit. And the court said, your claims are too broad to get a preliminary injunction. You got to prove actual harm.
Well, that'll be an interesting colloquy.
And then the Bucks County, Pennsylvania School District, well, this is a little complicated. They voted 5-4 to reverse a policy requiring students to use the restroom of their sex at birth. Now, it reflects a bit on the change in the political makeup of the board and concern that not doing it could subject them to a lawsuit from the federal government under the new rules under Title IX. Restrooms for staff and students will now be labeled biological males, biological females, those who identify as male, those who identify as female, separate but equal. And then there will also be single-use restrooms to be used by students no matter how you identify.
Okay.
Take me to Texas.
We live in interesting times. My new heroine, Courtney Gore in Texas. She was elected to a small town school board as a right-wing activist. There she is. Pretty cute. Now she says that she has switched because since she's been on the school board and looked at the lessons that are actually being taught, she has found that they teach how to be a good friend, a good human.
They're not being sexualized.
They're being taught good citizenship and politeness and respect. So she has changed her mind.
And she kind of recognized in working on this that, I think what they're really out to do is destroy public education. And I didn't get involved in that for this for that.
But the right wing is on her case and saying, come on, we were elected you to destroy public education. What do you think you're doing?
All right.
So thank you, Courtney Gore.
Well, this is kind of my favorite story of the week in Cranford, New Jersey. A bakery, the Sweet and Fancy Emporium, we got a picture of it. They got an anonymous letter from citizens of Cranford it was from one person, objecting to a pride flag that they were flying, saying, me and my friends, we're going to boycott this store over that because it's a symbol of left-wingers who hate America.
Well, at least they weren't bombing the store or committing arson or showing up with pellet guns.
The owner posted the hate note on social media last month with a note saying that we welcome everyone. And then she held a store fundraiser for the Trevor Project, selling these rainbow baked goods. And hundreds of people lined up to buy them. They were lined up down the street. They sold out in 70 minutes. Mayor Brian Andrews said, Cranford is an inclusive, pluralistic community that welcomes all residents and visitors.
And we also want to, a little more good news before we get to more bad, congratulate Jay Jones, the new Student Association president at Howard University, who is non-binary. Elected by the students, I guess, a handsome Student Association president. Congratulations to you.
Also served as president of her middle school. Comes from a devout Christian background, but where they were taught that LGBT people were going to hell. There is no such place. But after she graduated, she hopes to work in campaign strategy.
Or non-binary, uses what pronouns?
That's what I have down. That she does use she. I also have.
I don't know.
I also saw trans in another story.
Okay, whatever. Anyway, a fine representative. A couple of less fine stories in California in Geruga Valley High School.
Yeah, I
may be screwing up that name. Geruga Valley, I think, High School. A teacher was fired for defying pro-trans policies, sued over the firing, and has reached a settlement with the school for $360,000. Won't get their job back, but has won that settlement.
Well, she had to agree not to seek employment in the district anymore. She was represented by one of those right-wing religious legal groups.
Yeah.
But, she posted her views on social media, which some students found offensive. And now she's helping the legal group's campaign. Teachers don't lie, as in it's a lie to call a trans girl a girl.
lie to call someone by their preferred name or
It's
pronouns.
very
Heaven
impolite.
forbid.
It's not very Christian.
And also in California, in Davis, California, the Yolo County Library has been ordered to pay Moms for Liberty there $70,000 because they threw them out in the middle of a forum they were holding in the library where they were spouting a lot of anti-trans rhetoric. And the librarian said, whoa, wait a minute, we can't have this here. Please leave.
They were calling the trans girls men. The next day after they threw them out, anti-LGBTQ bomb threats were received after Riley Gaines, that turf swimmer, helpfully posted the phone number of the library. So
Charming.
Look, I don't believe in, censoring once you've scheduled something, but come on.
And maybe you'd be a little more careful about scheduling.
And a U.S. District Court in Florida dismissed a lawsuit filed by an anti-trans group against the State Department of Corrections challenging the groundbreaking law protecting trans inmates. It was a Lambda ACLU Transgender Law Center case. A right-wing group filed on behalf of cisgender women inmates saying that they were, but the court said, again, your harms here are speculative. You're not actually saying these women were harmed.
Well, that's the thing. All these charges, all this high dudgeon, all this outrage, and what really has happened to you, and what about the centuries of horrible treatment of LGBTQ people across the board?
I agree.
Reparations?
Take me to Brooklyn.
Well, I had a lovely time Sunday at Brighton Beach Pride, the 8th annual Brighton Beach Pride in Brooklyn on the boardwalk at Coney Island and Brighton Beach. This is put on annually by RUSA LGBT. Those are immigrants from all the former Soviet republics and countries. I'm going to take this off now.
Okay.
And there they are on the boardwalk. It's a great event because this area of Brooklyn is a neighborhood of immigrants from these areas in Eastern Europe and Russia, and quite conservative traditionally.
Any incidents this year?
No. And the first couple of years, the restaurant owners on the boardwalk would come out and yell at us and say nasty things. But now the group parades down the boardwalk with all those flags and signs you saw, and flags representing all the different countries. You see prominently the Ukraine flag, and chants about Putin being the evil creature he is. And then we stop at one point on the boardwalk and people make speeches, and it's all great. And I was asked to say a few words, and what I said was that while it was a lovely, casual, sunny, beautiful day stroll down the boardwalk, they should keep in mind that really their march and their words are seen all over the world and represent hope for people who are still living in oppressed situations.
Because they don't let you have pride parades in Russia.
No, not anymore, and less. And heaven forbid you even pull out a rainbow flag in Russia or put on a rainbow earring. You can be going to jail.
Right.
So I'm thrilled to be associated with them and really recommend the Brighton Beach Pride Parade and the RUSA LGBT group as something to get involved with and enjoy. It's a great bunch of people. And of course, I didn't understand half of what was said because they were speaking Russian and other languages, but there was some translation.
And for those of you who are of German descent, and I have, the Humm name is Germanic, we march in the Stubende parade. General von Steuben, who was gay himself, a Revolutionary War hero, and that'll be in September. And Rick Landman, who organizes us, says, let's do it again on September 21st. So if you are, get in touch and we'll get you in our group. And we don't get any pushback.
And there are lots and
on
lots
Fifth Avenue.
Yeah, there are lots and lots of pride parades and events coming up. Maybe I have a list of the upcoming parades. Maybe we'll put that in our show note and tell you more next week about that. And of course, the Queer Liberation March on June 30th. no cops, no corpse, no BS.
A follow-up, we told you last week about Sergeant Anna Lang, who won a lawsuit versus Houston County there in, where is Georgia, against the Sheriff's Department to get them to cover her gender confirmation surgery. But here's the news. The county spent $1.2 million in legal fees not to cover her $10,000 procedure. She's been with the department since 2006. Said it was painful to have to fight the county tooth and nail to get basic health care.
No price too high to promote discrimination. And
go ahead.
A bad story from the Bronx where a guy has been using a dating app to rope men into situations where he robs them. This is a guy who was robbed of his clothes, his phone, his Apple Watch.
This is a reminder, and he engaged in some violence going out the door.
Yeah.
But this is a reminder. You want to meet somebody on an app, take them to a neutral location, let other people see them, preferably people, introduce them to others so that you're safer going home with them.
Or don't go home with them.
And we told you that half of Target stores wouldn't be selling Pride merchandise, but data compiled by PR Daily found that 78% of companies are not planning to change their Pride strategy this year, and they'll continue to merchandise.
Okay, although I'd like, well,
okay,
I don't want to get in the
international news.
Yeah, I'm sorry to see that Biden, maybe even today, as we tape on Wednesday, but sometime this week, is meeting with the new president of Kenya, who is, reputedly younger and new blood, but he's very supportive of the Kill the Gays bill in Kenya. And I'm hoping that Biden says something to him about that. I don't like that he's being celebrated as, a fresh new face. And he's not that popular at home because he's proposing big tax hikes, and people are not happy about that.
Well, the UK government is trying to do tax cuts to get themselves reelected, but they've also issued guidance to schools telling them not to teach children about the concept of gender identity, including the fact that gender is a spectrum. This applies up to grade 5. The government already requires schools to inform parents if their children want to transition their gender. And the Equalities Minister issued a new law, announced a new law requiring new restaurants, offices, and some public places to have separate male and female toilets to crack down on gender-neutral restrooms. I mean, it's just insane. This is all they have to run on.
All right, good news. Liechtenstein, the parliament there, by a vote of 24-1, has passed marriage equality. It will become legal in 2025 there if the royals don't veto it and there is no public referendum denying it.
Well,
but it looks good.
This is a little complicated story in Peru. There was a presidential decree classifies trans identities as mental health conditions in the country's health insurance plan, using obsolete classifications, including ego dystonic homosexuality as well. But the Ministry of Health says they don't view LGBTQ identities as illnesses. So there were protests in Peru over this, big ones.
500 people came out to protest
on Idaho Bit, on the International Day Against Homophobia.
But what's so ironic is that years ago in this country, the trans community objected to being completely removed from the DSM, the
Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Illnesses.
Thank you. Because they felt they needed a diagnosis to get insurance coverage. And that's what the Peru government says it's doing, that it is making this classification so that people can get insurance coverage. Meanwhile, we've moved on from that, I think, and I'm not entirely confident that I know the exact details, but it's sort of turning on itself in every which direction.
When we don't know on this show, we say we don't know.
But what we do know is that people should be able to get insurance coverage for necessary medical procedures, and they don't have to be diagnosed as a mental illness
Right.
to get that kind of coverage for medical help.
In Argentina, this is a horrifying story. 10 police officers, well, it's not horrifying that they were arrested, 10 police officers arrested and charged with murder of a trans woman found strangled to death in her cell. This is Sofia Fernandez, 39, was a former language professor about to become a nurse, was in the process of getting her gender legally recognized, apparently jailed in a trumped up robbery charge for which there is no evidence. It took campaigns from family and communities to get the cops arrested.
Well, it would be nice if we were effective in this country at getting cops arrested for that kind of behavior. But she had been discriminated against in academia as a professor, and that's why she was changing careers and looking forward to taking up nursing as a career. And then she runs into this, and she's murdered.
And how about that Edinburgh story?
A rape crisis center worker objected to the fact that clients, rape victims, were assigned counselors and not given the ability to say, I don't want a trans woman to be my counselor. And she claimed she was just advocating for free choice. She was fired for saying this, and the Rape Crisis Center said this is discrimination. You can't advocate for that. And I think the head of the Rape Crisis Center is a trans woman.
Yes, she is, the CEO. And this woman has moved on. She won her case for discrimination. She now works for a rape crisis center funded by J.K. Rowling.
Yes, that's not so. That raises some questions. Also in the UK, a bevy of stars has come out in support of Kevin Spacey after the recent documentaries where his accusers gave their stories, and then he spoke at length about how it was all a put-up charge.
I mean, I really felt for these men. I certainly believe them. They were very credible. I mean, if we're going to be the jury on this. But Sharon Stone is blaming the victims, accusing them of secret agendas. F. Murray Abraham called them vultures, saying, let he who was without sin cast the first stone.
Oh, please.
Oh, my God. And out gay Stephen Fry said, Spacey was clumsy and inappropriate on many occasions, but the accusations don't add up to crimes, and he has already paid the price. So here's what I have to say to all of you. Go ahead and hire him and see if you can make any money off your movie, or if anybody will go see it, or if you can get insurance against Kevin Spacey's predilections.
Well, it'd be interesting to see whether he's stopped them or not. And reports from Uganda that LGBTQ people under more draconian kill the gays bills there are being hounded out of their homes and their businesses, beaten, and are fleeing the country.
Okay. AIDS news?
Yes.
Well, more on the Mpox outbreak. We've told you there's a new, more severe version in the Democratic Republic of the Congo that could spread here. The CDC says, urging those at risk to get the 2-dose vaccinations as soon as possible, especially men who have sex with men. You do need the 2 doses.
They've observed a substantial rise in Mpox cases in New York City, not the Congo version, but the previous Mpox version. And they're saying, yes, get the 2 shots. This is mostly affecting Black and Latino men from ages 25 to 44. And even if you had just 1 shot, if you stopped after 1 shot, last year when this was happening?
2 years, well.
You can, whenever it was, you can get the 2nd shot now. It's not too late.
There were 30,000 cases in 2022 in the U.S. That was the big outbreak. And there were just 1,700 last year. But it is, now, apparently, the other big news is the vaccine is now available at pharmacies.
And you can go on the NYC Vaccine Finder website to find out where it's available near you.
Now, the U.S. Department of Justice got the Shelby County, was it Tennessee?
Yes.
DA's office to agree to stop prosecuting people living with HIV using the the state's aggravated prostitution law. It's the first such agreement that the Department of Justice has reached in the fight to end the criminalization of sex workers and people living with HIV.
They also got them to stop putting people with HIV on the sex offender registry.
Right.
Tennessee has become the state with the most anti-LGBTQ laws.
This is
and
progress.
This is one of them. Yes, this is progress, but it's progress that the Department of Justice is prioritizing this to get done. So that's good.
The United Kingdom is having is talking about their blood scandal. We talked about the one in France several years ago. They finally apologized for the NHS giving out contaminated blood, killing 3,000 people, injuring 30,000 more. When they got short, they would buy them blood from U.S. prisons, which was loaded with hepatitis C and HIV. But these cases go back to 1948, and they're going to start compensating people $127,000 apiece, and they say that's just a start.
New report from the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, new infections with HIV in 2022, the most recent figures, are down. They're slowly decreasing, not as fast as we would like, but they are going down. But 31,000 people were diagnosed with new HIV infections in 2022, and it's up 25% for trans women. That's a very vulnerable population. Latino gay men are 39% of the new diagnoses for men who have sex with men, which is pretty significant. But Black men, I think, are new infections are down. But in New York City, the government is threatening cuts to funding for HIV organizations and programs.
And libraries and everything else, and the council ought to restore this stuff.
Well, the
game.
estimates, it is a game. It's a game that we've seen played for years, but it's particularly bad now because the reports are that the revenue in New York City is going up,
yes.
that tax revenue. And yet the city government plays this game of saying, we're cutting. And then they restore some of the cuts. But GMHC, Callan Lord, other organizations are facing cuts and
having to lay off staffers.
Yes, and new infections with HIV are up a little in the city, and yet they're threatening these cuts.
Okay,
it's crazy.
All right, entertainment news.
Yes.
How about your friend Cola Scola?
I do love
Big
Cola
hit
Scola.
off Broadway in Oh Mary, where he plays Mary Todd. He
or they. I'm not sure how they self-define at the moment.
It doesn't come to Broadway until June 26th. Too late for the Tony Awards on June 16th. But Oh Mary just won the Outer Critics Award for Best New American Play, and Cole won for Outstanding Lead Performance in an Off-Broadway Play. Tied with William Jackson Harper for Primary Trust.
It just makes me laugh every time I think of Cola Scola because I think he is so
picture up again.
Funny. So
it's
funny.
It's a funny picture.
There he is, they as Mary Todd Lincoln, who crashes around this set. It is a wacky comedy. It is crude. It is funny. It is nothing. It's not Tennessee Williams, but it is funny. And I am thrilled to see it getting recognition. I'm a little nervous that it is not going to play in a bigger Broadway theater, but who knows?
We'll see.
Who knows?
And the critics also gave Suffs, about suffragists in the 19-teens, with lesbian content. That won Best Broadway Musical. And talking about LGBTQ nominees for the Tony Awards, we neglected to cite Malia Joy Moon, 21, nominated for Best Performance by a Lead Actress in a Musical for Alicia Keys' Hell's Kitchen, set in Manhattan Plaza, where Keys grew up. Moon was ready to give up the theater when she was cast in the off-Broadway run of the show. She uses she, they pronouns, was non-binary for a bit, but now she says she feels more like a woman and does identify as queer. She wants to be a movie star, a mental health advocate, and a singer-songwriter.
Well, Victor Hovland wasn't even going to play the PGA Championship, and he came in third.
Right. Oh, and the Tony Awards on CBS will be hosted for the third time in a row by Ariana DeBose, who identifies as non-binary, I think.
I can't keep track.
It's very hard.
I'm very, very happy to respect people's pronouns and self-definitions, but
Bisexual. That's what her identity-
that sounds right.
That's
but,
right. I apologize, Ariana. You're always welcome on the program.
We have to keep lists.
We
You know
do.
how you keep your contact lists? Well, we're going to have to annotate them.
Okay.
And how about that Billie Eilish?
Well, I'll let you talk about this.
Well, she has come, she's sort of started sneaking out of the closet, and now she's out with a bang. And her new album, Hit Me Hard and Soft, is getting a lot of positive reviews.
No more songs about breaking up with boys.
No, and in contrast to Taylor Swift, who puts out albums that have 98,000 songs, she has about 10. And one of them is called Lunch. And I'll let you read the lyrics.
One of the lyrics is, I could eat that girl for lunch. She dances on my tongue, tastes like she might be the one. We will link to the song Lunch in our weekly email. Go to gayusatv.org and you can sign up for our weekly emails.
It's not that we're reluctant to show you the video of the song, which is not, sexually explicit, but the lyrics are. But we're not allowed to show that kind of material on this show.
Free speech.
No, I'm talking about just taking commercial stuff off of YouTube. We can't do it because we're low class little cable show.
Well, by the way, the Tribeca Film Festival, June 5th through the 16th in Manhattan, has a big lineup of LGBTQ programming. Go to tribecafilm.com and we'll include the direct link in our email. And the New Fest has an earlier Pride lineup, May 30th to June 3rd, which includes streaming of movies, so you can watch it anywhere in the country. Go to newfest.org, including the movie Close to You from Elliot Page.
And the Tribeca lineup, I couldn't even finish reading it. It was so long.
But we will send you the link and you can see if you want to see any of that stuff.
But I did catch the end of The Amazing Race, season 10,052, won by a gay couple, Ricky and Cesar, who won almost every leg of the race. There they are in their cute little matching shirts. They say that they will use their $1 million winnings to start building a family. Surrogates, IVF, whatever.
It's expensive.
It is. I think they'll have a little left over, but.
And if you watch this program, I didn't like very much from the Broadway season, but I love the revival of Ossie Davis's Pearly Victorious, a non-Confederate romp through the Cotton Patch, which is a hilarious and pointed satire on racism. It closed on Broadway, but it's being televised at 9:00 this Friday on PBS. Is great performances starring Leslie Odom Jr. and Carrie Young, both nominated for Tony Awards.
And in our last 30 seconds, congratulations to the LGBTQ winners of the Peabody Awards for excellence in broadcasting, sort of like the Pulitzers. Fellow Travelers, the docudrama about the Lavender Scare. Bluey, the cartoon that has gay content now, Bill T. Jones. The Stroll, fantastic documentary about sex work in New York City. And Somebody Somewhere with Bridget Everett.
And All the Beauty and the Bloodshed.
Nan Golden.
Nan Golden.
See you next week.
Okay.